ready? I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
And Culpy and Chip, and here's Ghosty.
This is somebody who won a contest for Drew Legary.
Yes.
So, based on your Patreon alliance, sometimes...
It's Oscar?
Yes. Oscar Wiklund. Wait.
Yes.
Yes. Whoa, he won big. So he won a $20 Bandcamp gift card, and he also won a review. Good Lord.
I know. That whatever prize. Oh, that's the first place winner.
Yeah.
He stacked it.
He stacked it. So, look, depending on your alliance leader, stuff like that happens. What happens is the alliance leader goes to me and says, hey, Vin, I want to do this thing. What's your budget? I'll say, sure, I'll give somebody a $20 Bandcamp gift card and whatever. So, shout out to the big homie. He won. Congratulations. He wanted to do a song from a band named X Japan, but we cannot do Japanese bands because we're going to get a copyright strike.
How do you know that it is Japanese, though? Or are you just like, it says the word Japan and it's out?
And I asked Drew if...
what?
If X Japan really was from Japan, and he didn't say. Because, I mean, a band can say whatever.
Yeah, well, I know, yeah.
You know, like, I mean, one band was named Africa or something like that.
Yeah.
They weren't named Africa, but whatever.
We're not taking that chance, regardless.
For time and topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori.
Firesides. We're the live streams. They're over there.
Right. Live streams are there. Firesides are there.
Links are in the description for all of our social media channels, our gear, everything. So check it out.
Yep.
And remember, if you send us a picture of yourself wearing our gear, then we'll add you into one of our videos.
Where in the world is the village?
Yes.
All right. So this is Asphodel. What is that? Addicted to God. Let's do it.
Ready? Go.
The murder of Jesus.
Yeah.
idea. Whoa.
No one else shall we sing at the end of day.
Whoa.
one was a trip.
What in the world did I just listen to?
Wow.
What the hell?
That changed so many times.
Well, there is a Queen vibe, like the... Remember that one? Bada boosh, bada boosh, da, da,
Yeah.
da, da.
To me, that was like a stage performance.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty crazy.
There were so many styles in here. And then at the end, the music of that last piece was just glorious. It was very woo!
They're a black. That's
Wow.
so okay. So this is a black metal song. This is like a True Cult pick, but it wasn't a True Cult. It's not from the True Cult, but
This
you're
is
in the
like
True
one
Cult.
of the most unique songs.
If you're in the True Cult, you need to try to find a way to get this guy in your crew, because this is a pretty badass black metal song. Good lord. Man, there's so many things to talk about. Sonically, it was crazy, especially at the end. Like, I don't usually get in the zone on stuff.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah, I did, especially toward the end. But the thing is that he was so in-depth and detailed talking about Jesus and these cities and things like that. Like, he does not have a surface level knowledge of the Bible. Like, this dude is extremely detail oriented. So it's the name of the record is called The Murder of Jesus the Jew.
Whoa.
So the whole thing is about that. But good lord, I mean, these black metal people, man, they're extremely close to God. You know, it's a conversation we're having with it's a running conversation about how I feel most of us are going to end up home, and this is all said, and, we're talking ahead about it too, but I've been recently having a couple debates with a couple of my Christian friends, and they're talking about how, most people are going to hell or whatever, and I don't believe that. I actually believe the opposite. And some of that reasoning is because of stuff like this. Now, I know that these people are probably not a Christian band, and they've probably said a bunch of blasphemous stuff, and they've probably even intended for something here to be blasphemous. But at the same time, like, what Jesus said to the guy, you are not far from the kingdom.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy lyrical. This is probably the most unique song that's still good that I've heard this year.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of bands are trying to be unique and do something different, and I get it, you're trying to...
Trying too hard to be cute.
Yeah.
But this was like... It's funny, too, because, like, there was parts of it where I was like... I'm like, okay, this is good. And then I'm like, oh, what is this? I'm not good with this. This is getting a low rating.
Yeah.
And then it went somewhere else, and I'm like, no, this is really good. Like, I was like all over the place. And then by the end, I was like, this? I like this. I would listen to this again. Yeah,
it's insane. I wish there was an instrumental. That last part at the end, I wish there was an instrumental from this band.
Absolutely.
They just did that for 4.5, 5 minutes. That would be insane. Of course, the
lyrics couldn't really hear them good.
Yeah, you couldn't hear the lyrics good. So we had to follow along with the lyrics pretty intensely, but good God, what a crazy song. First of all, the line, I am addicted to my God, is a very interesting line, because to your point, Brian was talking about this in one of his Instagram videos where people were like, oh, you just replaced your addiction to drugs to addiction to God, and whatever. And I think he was upset at it, but he said it annoys him or something when people say that. What do you think about that phrase? Like, you replace your addiction with drugs, addiction with God. Like, how do you...
I used to not see that as something like, I would hear you are using your God as a crutch. That's what I used to hear. Because I wasn't addicted to drugs and then had God. I always had God ever since I was as far back as I can remember. So they would always say, oh, you're using your God as a crutch. And, like, I used to find that offensive, because I was like, what do you mean I'm using him as a crutch? Like, it's not a crutch. I mean, like, turn the other cheek, or go in and talk to... If you have somebody that you're upset with, you're supposed to go and talk to them about it rather than talking about them, or, like, you gotta talk to them. Like, how are you saying that this is a crutch? I live a much harder lifestyle than you do.
Yeah.
And then,
we were finding that out in the Bible Boogie as it progresses. People like, shit,
Yeah.
How are you gonna do this?
Yeah. So I always resented the fact that people would say that. I was just really, I didn't like that. But then I remember actually close to when we became friends, like, I don't know,
A decade probably.
yeah, over that actually ago, because Selah's 9. So anyway, yeah, like way a long time ago we became friends, and I remember you said you were like basically everybody has a crutch, everybody has something that they're leaning on. Mine just happens to be the eternal God of the universe, you know what I mean? Yeah, the Almighty. So I was like, yeah.
And the other thing is that when you have a broken leg, you need a crutch.
Yes.
And if there's one thing I learned about metal, is that the metal community is full of a lot of broken people. And we're some of the most broken. So I don't have I gladly say that I've used Jesus in my crutch my entire life. Because I've been a broken person my entire life.
Do you think every community has like a bunch of broken people, but that just the metal community is not so afraid to show it?
We're the most honest about it.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah. You know, and then that's we talked about the changes that you've made, recently in your life and things like that. And I actually believe being on this channel and in this community and the ethos of expressing yourself.
Yeah. Has helped with that.
Has helped you grow as a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the addiction thing is kind of the same species of kind of argument and here's what I'll say. If we're all in a desert and we're dying of thirst and somebody's been giving us, ocean water.
Yikes.
And somebody says, if you keep drinking that ocean water, it's going to kill you. Then they find an oasis. And they go, you're just replacing the ocean water with fresh water. Yes.
Yes, I am, sir.
Correct.
You should try it too. You're funny.
Yes, I am. To your point. So yes, if a person's been doing drugs and then they kick drugs and then now they're addicted to God, yes. Yeah. They're replacing one addiction for another. I guess you could say human beings are addicted to water because, give it a couple hours and you have to drink. An addiction is something that you can't stop doing even if you wanted to. So I guess we're all addicted to water. Right. But
there are some addictions that are good for you and some that are destructive.
If a man is stuck in the wilderness and he's drinking salt water, which is actually going to speed his death, and you say, this is killing you, drink this, it'll save you for your entire tenure in this desert, it would be irrational for the saltwater drinker to say, you're just replacing one addiction with the other and I'm going to stay with my salt water. But you'll die. And your friend will live. So there's that. So, like, the whole I'm addicted to my God and, when, what people were saying, oh, you kick drugs and that doesn't offend me. It's like, yes, I am. I agree. Like,
well, I mean, that's how I feel about it now. But when I was 16, I was like,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, those types of...
Honestly, I didn't necessarily know what to say at that point. You know what I mean? Like, there was so much stuff that I heard at that age, but I was so young, I didn't realize, like, at my church, people would raise their hands when they worship and stuff like that. And they'd be like, what? People would be like, what is that? Why? That's so weird. And then, like, now, I'm like, every single show we go to, I'm like,
let me see you put your motherfucking hands in the air.
And all the hands go up. I'm like, all right, so you people do know what this is.
You do know how to raise your hands in worship with your lying self, with your hypocritical self. So that line was crazy.
It's so funny too. Wait. I have to say this too. Because, like, at church, like, if somebody were to say, get your hands up in the air at church, people would be like, that pastor was telling them what to do. Yeah. But it's okay if it's on a rock show and he cursed at them and told them to raise their hands. Yeah. Listen, I have no problem with it. I love it when they say that. Actually, I always get happy when they say, raise your motherfucker. I love that part. But it's just, Hypocrisy is killing me.
Well, I just think it's a blind spot.
It probably,
Because
probably is.
People want to believe that they're self-sufficient and they don't need any crutches and they don't need any water. People just want to stunt like they're self-sufficient. Well, metal music wouldn't be so important to you if you were so self-sufficient.
Right.
You need something to deal with your angst, and I don't judge you for it. It's just going to kill you. Okay, so what's interesting is the line, I am addicted to my God, is being personified as Jesus saying it. And then it says, I am Rabbi, follow me. And I think that's actually a very, very good template. If you want people to follow you, this is for Christians, like the 2 Christians that'll probably see this video, and half of you are probably judging us for listening to this song.
Say that.
But that's the template. The first thing to do is get yourself addicted to God, and then people will follow you. Case closed. And that's why, we talked about this in the Bible Bully. Like, I don't feel the need to convert a single person.
Yeah.
I just feel the need to get as close and close to God as I can. And, people will want to follow that. And I don't get close to God so people can follow. I'm just saying that, a lot of our evangelism, whatever you want to call it, it's a lot of pressure-based tactics and things like that. And I think, like I said, I'm sure that this brother didn't mean to, but this is a template. You get yourself addicted to God, and people will follow for sure.
It's like anything else. Like, if you see somebody that really, really loves some product or something that they're using, and they're not like, it's, like they used to plead this meat company that used to come knocking on our door, and they were like, they sold meat out the back of their truck, and it was like supposedly these really amazing deals, but you were kind of like, am I gonna get some kind of sickness or whatever?
I bought one of those once.
Yeah, like those kind of people. You're like, wait, well, my father used to say, if this is so great, why isn't everybody doing it? Like, what's going on here? And they're like trying to sell you. And then we ended up breaking down and buying one of the packages, and the meat was like, it was gross and gristly and whatever. And so it's like, but then there's some like legit good products that you don't have to like really like, there's some stuff that never goes on sale because it's so great. You know what I mean? Like there's certain makeup that I used to use. I've since boycotted them, but they never put a sale on their makeup because their product is so good. Well, it's the same thing with something like that. You know what I mean? Like if it's, you don't have to force somebody into their, to knowing God. Like God is God, so he's going to take care of that. I don't need to force you and push you into it.
Right. Right. So this is Jesus speaking, born in Nazareth, a mason's son, which is interesting because a lot of people say that Jesus' father was a carpenter.
Yeah.
And the Greek word is actually closer to mason.
Oh, really?
So this guy...
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know if it's a double entendre because Mason also is like a secret society, which usually has a negative connotation. Sephirus, I believe, is... the Sephirot are the emanations of God, right? I think there's about 7
How
of
do you
them.
say it?
Sephirot.
Oh.
That's how...
Sepphoris would be really cool sounding.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure if he's conjugating the verb or if this is a singular form or even if he's talking about the Sephirot, but it's the idea, especially in Jewish mysticism, was that God was so high and holy that he could not reveal himself to his created beings in his prime form. And that includes angels. And so what he does is he kind of emanates a representative of himself from his nature, and in order to condescend to interact with his created beings. So, born in Nazareth, a mason's son, in the glare of Sephirus, which would be in the glare of God's emanations.
Like heat from a fire, you mean? Like...
Well, glare I would take as that God was watching him. Like he was watched by God his whole life.
No, I mean the how do you say...
Sephiros.
Yeah.
Well, Sephirot is the actual way it's supposed to be, whatever. But like I said, Sephirus...
You see what I'm saying? Is it like fire, like heat from a fire? You couldn't touch the actual fire, but you can feel like... You couldn't, like, get right in there at the fire, but you want to get the warmth from fire, kind of get, like,
what are you
it puts off.
about?
Like, because you were saying, like, an emanation of God rather than God himself. So you can't... We're not going to warm ourselves with the literal flames. We're going to warm ourselves with the heat that comes off the flames. So it's like, because the intensity of the flames would be too much for us.
Right.
Or not really.
Well, if you're talking about the emanation,
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I'm talking about.
The angel of the Lord, for example, would be one.
Yep.
Right? So where he's referred to as a divine being, and he is a divine being, but he's not the divine being at the same time, which is kind of, but I think it basically means that Jesus was in the glare of God, that God was always watching him. I shall become high in heaven, stoned in hell. I believe in Belial in the end of days. See, now this is like the thing. I think what he's saying is that Jesus is actually like a dark messiah. Like this Jesus is a dark messiah. Obviously Belial is one of the chief demons.
Yeah, we used to say Belial.
And what's interesting is, Paul talks about it. He says, what fellowship is there between Christ and Belial? In I think it's 1 Corinthians 8, where they're talking about not being unequally yoked with unbelievers. It's either 1 Corinthians 7 or 1 Corinthians 8, but he basically say, what fellowship is there between Christ and Belial? Belial is one of the chief demons in the apocalyptic literature. So what he's saying is, I believe in Belial in the end of days. So he's really not a good person. Like this Jesus is like a dark Jesus. He's deceptive. He's really on Belial's side, but he's acting like he's the Messiah. And it says, I shall become high in heaven, stoned in hell. Oh. It's like, like he's going to invade heaven and take a spot in heaven, but he's doing it under false pretenses because he's actually demonic in this particular story, I think. I believe in Elohim. I'm always high in heaven, stoned in hell. I believe in Yohanan, apocalyptic dread. Yohanan, there were two rabbis. I wanted to make sure there were two rabbis. I forget, Eleazar and then Rabbi Yohanan. And so he was mentioned in the apocalyptic literature. I believe in Israel. I'll always be high in heaven, stoned in hell. Hillel the wise, I follow his words, and all he is like him I am. So Hillel, remember there were two schools of thought. There was Shimei and there was Hillel. We talked about this with the divorce thing. Is Shimei had a perspective, Hillel had a perspective. So during the period of Second Temple Judaism, these two were massively, which is a contemporary time of Jesus. Those two rabbis were massively influential. So what he's saying is that Jesus was basically a student of Hillel, and that he carried on his teaching, because it says, and all he is like him I am.
I see.
And in Matthew chapter 19, Jesus, a lot of people believe that Jesus took Hillel's side of the debate versus Shimei's side of the debate. What's interesting, what a lot of people do not know, is that Jesus took an actual, because Hillel is kind of looked at as like an extreme conservative.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to sexual ethics. Jesus actually took a more extreme stance than Hillel did. As far as sexual ethics goes. This is very, very interesting stuff. Like, you have to know a lot of stuff
to be able to
to know what this dude is talking about. And then it says, I'm addicted to my God. All behold the locust eater, all behold the Qumran Baptist. So, that's obviously John the Baptist. But what he's saying is that John the Baptist was an Essene. So, when you talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls and things like that, that was found in the Qumran Valley, in the Qumran Caves, etc. And it was this entire community of people who left and went into the wilderness and were basically coagulated together to make themselves holy for the preparation of the coming of the Messiah.
Yeah.
And so they lived a very, very, very simple life, and they lived in the wilderness. So here you have John the Baptist. He's a locust eater because he lives a very, very simple life, and he's in the wilderness. So a lot of people believe, oh, this dude was an Essene. And what's interesting is the Pharisees are mentioned in the New Testament. The Sadducees are mentioned in the New Testament. The Essenes are never mentioned in the New Testament.
They're not?
No. So that leads people to believe that, well, remember,
yeah, I guess it was just by assumption because John the Baptist. Right,
Saddam. So they're like, the Essenes were mentioned, they were friendly to, and the Essenes were, I'm sorry, baby. The Essenes were an apocalyptic messianic group. So what that meant was, we got to get right because the Messiah is going to show up, and when he shows up, the world's going to be over, he's going to trash the world or whatever, and we got to be holy enough to be able to, bear the coming of the Messiah.
Yeah.
Of course, the answer to that obviously is actually the Messiah was coming to make you worthy. Not that you get yourself worthy so the Messiah could come. They had it flipped. So, behold the locust eater, all behold Cephas and Judas, all behold sons of thunder. So Cephas and Judas.
Disciples.
Peter.
Peter, yeah.
Cephas is Peter, right? So Peter's original name was Simeon, and then Jesus changed it to Rock, which is Cephas in Greek, I'm pretty sure, or Aramaic. I'm pretty sure it's Greek though. So you've got Cephas and Judas, both of whom were traitors to Jesus. Cephas, Peter denied him 3 times. Judas obviously sold him for 30 pieces of silver. And then you had James and John, who were called Boanerges, according to Jesus. And they were the sons of Sunder. So he's talking about, you have to know your Bible very well to know who he's talking about. Because I guarantee you, 90% of these guys' audience, Cephas, Judas, sons of thunder, they have no idea what he's talking about.
People would know Judas, but Cephas and Sons of Thunder.
Right. James and John got that nickname because they were passing through Samaria and the Samaritans wouldn't accept him. So they said, Lord, shall we call down fire? And then
It's crazy because you hear Sons of Thunder, you think, oh, they'd be some, but then it turns out they just wanted to kill all those people.
Right. So, who is God? I am God, you're a God, but what is God? I know God, it's my God. Where is God? Why is God? That question right there was very intriguing to me. Why is God? I'm going to probably think about that for a year. Because I know why I exist, and I know why you exist. We exist to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. But why does God exist? Which is a very, very interesting question, because there was nobody to because Him.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Because when you say why, when you ask the question why, you answer with because. And because is a contraction of 2 words, be and cause.
What is the cause of it?
So what you're saying when you say because is that the cause be this. So this is the cause. So when you ask the question why, it necessarily follows with a because, but there is no cause for God. He's the uncaused first cause. So it's a very, very interesting question. Maybe the answer is why is God is not it's a category error in the way that the question is framed. In other words, it'd be like saying, what does green taste like? Right? That's a category error.
Yeah.
A gay God. A gay God, a sad God, a blind God, a dead God. I raise the dead. Who said so? I heal the sick.
Black God, white God. Did you read that one?
Yeah. That didn't really stick out to me. I didn't really care about that. But the next lines do. I raise the dead. Who said so? I heal the sick. Why do so? Whoo! It's like, first is the unbelief. Who says you rose from the dead? Now, there is substantial historical evidence to come to the conclusion that Jesus rose from the dead.
Yes.
Which, maybe the Bible boogiers will want me to do a breakdown on that, but it's up to Ian and Zonia and the community. I'm not sure. But that's a good line. And then it says, I heal the sick. Why do so? And I think the question is basically, well, why would you heal the sick if they're all going to die anyway?
Yeah.
Well, what's the point of doing that? If they're sick, let them die. Put them out of their misery. I think that's where he's going. God hates you all. Are you a Jew? No, sir, no. It's bad for you. Why, sir, why? Because God hates you all. Circumcised, you must be done. Which is sort of medieval Christianity. Right? Medieval Christianity was violently anti-Semitic. And terrible things happened to Jewish people under the boot of Christendom.
Yep.
And so what happens is you've got, and again, I talk about it all the time, but it got so bad that the Jews had to run to Salahuddin to protect them from the Crusaders, and then there's the famous line, we are not those men.
Yep.
So, that's probably speaking of medieval Christianity.
That's the Muslim people.
What?
When you say
Salahuddin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just figured everybody would guess that. Pretty sure everybody knew.
If you didn't know, say in the comment that you
If
didn't
I would
know.
have said Salahuddin, you would know.
I just want to make sure people know.
Okay.
I'm not going to assume.
No one else shall be saved at the end of days. I'm assuming he means no one else, as in the Jewish people.
It's crazy because he said God hates you all, and then he says circumcised.
Right.
And their circumcision was proof that God did love them and
Right.
they belonged to him. So it's actually the opposite
Right.
of I mean, circumcision obviously, it sounds like a crazy thing when you when you explain it out, but at the same time, it was something that they did that separated them as a people.
Yeah, and it marked them to being in covenant with God, having a special relationship with God. So there's a ton of irony there, but at the same time, that is what we were saying about the Jews that from John Chrysostom to Justin Martyr all the way till the Middle Ages. The church has not been very nice in their rhetoric towards the Jewish people. So, I mean, what can you say? Walk with me, Hasid Dreamer.
It's weird because the dispensationalists need the Jews in a sense. So now all of a sudden there's like a focus on them.
Right.
So now we need you. So you're a bourgeois.
For sure. Well, Martin Luther, during the Reformation, Martin Luther was convinced the reason that the Jews were resisting Christianity was because of all the idolatry in the Roman Catholic system. Because they're monotheistic, and Martin Luther was arguing that there's a lot of
the relics and all of that.
Right. So he believed, they're gonna convert in mass numbers, and then when he started witnessing to them, they were like, well, thank you. Yeah, we agree the Catholic Church is terrible, but we're gonna stay with our Judaism. And that's when Martin Luther went ballistic. He wrote Of the Jews and Their Lives, which was then republished and circulated by Adolf Hitler. I'm pretty sure even prior to Kristallnacht, which then continued to stoke the hatred of the nice, God-fearing Germans against the Jews. So it's just talking about the progression. I think what he's saying is, okay, if you want to see why I'm making the argument that Jesus is Belial or that he's a demon who's impersonating a good person, look at the ramifications of his whatever.
Yep.
Right? Walk with me, Hasid Dreamer. So the Hasidim are a group of ultra-Orthodox Jews.
Okay.
The ones with the hats and those are the Hasidim. Walk with me, walking leper. Walk with me, dancing slut. Walk with me, drunken filth. Walk with me, my children. Walk with me, my people. And then he just goes on and he starts naming Decapolis. Decapolis is actually a contingent of 10 cities in ancient Rome. So polis would be, city or populous, and Deca would be 10.
Do you think he's looking at that as a negative thing? Like, because he's he's saying, walk with me, he calls a leper, a slut, a drunken person, and then he calls them my children. Do you think he's looking at that as like, or because to me that's like a positive thing, like he's calling all those people that the world has deemed as like you should reject these people,
right?
But he's calling them my children and he's saying walk with me. But is it kind of like, do you think that he's looking at that in a negative way?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think what he's saying is maybe that Jesus, even though he was on the side of Belial, he still had good intentions and there's still something redeemable about him.
Or do you think
which
he's
is a strange concept.
You're just like when there's some people that are like their goodness makes your badness feel worse. You know what I mean? Like,
but
oh, he's so good, but he's come with me, you slut, come with me, you whatever.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think actually what's happening is that he's saying walk with me, but then it says to meet my fate as a piece of raw meat before the dogs of Rome. So what it's like on top, it's like, oh, this looks very nice. He's taking all these people in,
but take up your cross.
But he's taking them to be a piece of raw meat before the dogs of Rome. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jesus said, "Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow after me."
Sadat.
So that
correct.
It is there.
It's there. It's there. He's right.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people, I got really, really good atheist friends. I love them, but I don't think they've thought through the ramifications of what they're saying. If you look here, it says he characterizes Jesus' death on the cross of being a slab of raw meat before the Romans. And it's like, why in the world would anyone want to continue to follow that guy after that type of description? Mm-hmm. Which he's right. Mm-hmm. That's what he was. As a matter of fact, Isaiah 52:13 says that he was basically beaten beyond human recognition.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to know that he was a human if you were to see him on the cross. Yeah. So what that means is, it's just you'd just be seeing a piece of raw meat up there. And so That's pretty amazing. So how do you go from one day being just a beaten up slab of raw meat to another day having the largest religion on the planet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
in the face of persecution.
Now, because the Western world was Christianized during the medieval age.
Yeah.
Now we just say, oh yeah, Jesus died on the cross, and everybody kind of looks at that as like a good thing. And even if you don't look at it as a good thing, they look at it as a redemptive thing, because people have been so happily brainwashed by Christian ideology, and everybody's wearing crosses and all the rest of it. But if you were there in the first century and you heard somebody preaching this about Jesus, you'd be like, isn't that the guy that got torn up by the Romans and couldn't even help himself? He looked like a piece of rum. That's the guy we're supposed to follow?
Yeah.
Yeah. If he just stayed that way, it makes no sense. But the explosion of Christianity after the death of Jesus in the face of mortal persecution, in my mind, cannot be explained naturally. So, brilliant song, brilliant songwriter. I'm gonna listen to that. I'm gonna take that solo at the end, put it in iMovie, and just you know, chop it up 9 times, and just then I'll be able to have it for myself. What do you give the song?
It's a 10 actually for me.
Definite 10. Definite.
It was a 2 and then it jumped.
Definite 10 for me. Really good song, really good pick. Thank you, patrons, for being patient.
No, not patrons.
Well, yeah.
Well, a patron.
Well, you gotta let me finish.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, patrons, for being patient. We're the next few joints are gonna be all Patreon picks so that we can catch up before we head off to another show, which is gonna be Slipknot, which is pretty much gonna end the summer for us. So, really good song. Shout out to Drew Legary and his masterful running of his alliance. Good job coming up with the. I'm trying to find the guy's name. What's the guy's name?
Oscar.
Oscar, and shout out to Oscar. Good pick, my guy. Vin out.
Sori out.
Down.